Hi there, I'm Linda and this is Huttons Valley Permaculture. Getting plants into the ground is the essence of permaculture gardening and certainly is the path to abundance. So if I'm not out in my veggie patch adding in seeds or seedlings, I'm out here in my swale food forest adding in plants when I can. And today, that's exactly what I'm doing. In a fairly recent video, I was in this section of my food forest adding in some avocado trees that I've covered in tents to help protect them. But I also planted them in this section because I've previously planted all these support species and they would give adequate protection for the avocados from wind and frost. And so far this winter, they've been doing a really good job. I've also got some smaller support species coming along, some elderberry, and yet to come up is some comfrey that I've planted just as a mulch producer in this area. Just heading down from my avocado planting past a fairly sickly looking Tagesasti tree. They don't always survive, but I'll be able to chop that one down and add that to the forest floor where it will break down and help support the rest of the trees. Just along the swale, I've got this section here which I haven't planted out very thickly. The plan was to actually put in a water line from the dam up to a second tank just up next to my hay shed, but I've yet to do that and I don't know when I will. And I think I still will be able to dig through here fairly easily in between the plantings. Just recently I went to my local nursery to buy a persimmon tree, but came home with this white mulberry instead. I'd like to thank some of my viewers, Cherie, Deborah, Linda and Kirsten, for helping me purchase this beautiful tree. While I've got it in the ground successfully, I think I still need to give it a bit of support. So that's what I'm going to do with adding in some plantings around this tree. Just next to my white mulberry is my original planting of a mulberry tree, and it was a black mulberry, which I planted here a couple of years ago, but the first year it started to form buds, there was a really hard frost and it wiped out this little tree. I'm hoping for better success with my white mulberry tree, but I'm crossing my fingers we won't get any more frosts. And it's pretty much the reason why I'm going to be planting out a lot more support around this young tree. For my PDC, I had to write out in my design exercise exactly what plants that I was going to plant in and where. But what I've been finding is that it's really hard to source some of those plants that I did all that homework on, and I find that I'm just putting in plants that are native to the area. I'm putting in lots of different ones, and then down the track you'll sort of see how they perform and what are worth planting again. But I think the most important thing is just to get whatever plants you can into the ground. If you're gifted plants, put them in the ground. If you can get these at your local native nursery, put them into the ground. If you can just put into the ground the plants that you're able to source, I think that will help the soil and move the system along. I'm just going to start by placing these plants kind of a bit of a circle around my mulberry tree. Normally, before I start planting lots of plants in an area, I'd like to get in here and clear with my whippersnipper, but I'm not going to do that today. It's nearly the end of winter and still fairly cool, and I do find that there's lizards and different things that are hibernating in the tall grasses. I've learnt that by making a mistake of getting my whippersnipper out a bit too early, and I have got some of those lizards. So today I'm very mindful of this being a great habitat for some of our wildlife, so I want to disturb it as little as possible. Later on in spring, when it's starting to warm up, I can come through and clear it a bit more, but at the moment I'm just going to leave that in place in case there's little sleeping lizards. So I'm just going to clear a small area around where I'm going to plant this plant, and then I can also use that for mulch. I still find that sometimes just using a sickle is enough to disturb some little creatures. They mightn't be lizards, but in here we've got whatever that thing is. We've got worms, we've got little caterpillars, we've got snails, we've got all sorts of little critters in here calling this spot home. So it's really important to disturb it as little as possible. I'm just going to dig a small hole. Being tube stock, they don't need major hole to go into. There's a bit of a rock there. I'll get that out of the way. Okay, so that's perfect for our little tree. One done. Always good to recycle your posts. I often break them off, but even this little one here is still good just for marking a new planting. Okay, on to the next one. I'm just going to plant this one right next to this old mulberry. That is a little bush rat burrow. Who knows if that impacted on the roots of this little mulberry tree that I tried to get going, and I'm hoping that it won't impact on the roots of the new tree. But anyway, that's already in the ground. I'm just going to plant my little support tree right next to that. It is kind of marked with this old mulberry tree, but I'm still going to pop in a little stake next to it just to make sure that it's well identified. While we're here, next to my coppice acacia that didn't quite work out, apparently acacias don't coppice too well, so don't go chopping your acacias too severely. But I am leaving these in the ground here rather than chopping them off at the base, because they really do serve a purpose. It's a great perch for birds, and while birds are perched here, they also drop their droppings. The bird droppings are a great source of phosphorus and help fertilise the soil in your food forest. It's a great time of year to be planting still. Not too late. I wouldn't be planting sort of later in spring, just before the summer, in case it's a really dry summer like we had last year. But at the moment there's heaps of moisture in the ground and still plenty of rain to come. So it should help get these little plants established well before it all dries out. But I'm making sure I get this mulch around so that when it does dry out, there's still plenty of organic matter to hold in the moisture around my new trees. Without these stakes in the ground, these plants will definitely get lost. Just the one to go. This little plant, my last plant's not coming out well at all, but hopefully all these roots will come out and still be okay. might have just set him back a little bit. Alright, we'll get some mulch onto that and get a stake in. A hammer would have made that a lot easier, but it's in the ground. Grey shrike thrush. They're always in after I've done some plantings to get any worms that haven't hidden away just yet. Don't take all my worms. The path to abundance really is as simple as getting plants into the ground. Today I've got another 8 trees in the ground, which not only will support this mulberry tree, but will help to build soil by feeding the soil directly from the roots and providing biomass, which we can lay down on top, which will help feed the soil as well. Hopefully down the track it means a more abundant mulberry tree. Well, I hope you've enjoyed today's video. Thanks so much for watching, and bye for now.